All right, class, welcome to today's lesson. But before we get started on today's lesson, let's take a look at the United Kingdom for a second. Now, you know from yesterday that there's a map test next Wednesday on Western Europe. And 4 of the countries that you need to know happen to be these 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom. Sometimes for students, it's a little bit hard trying to figure out, okay, wait, which countries were what? Oh, I forgot. I know that these countries are on this island, but I can't remember what they are. Here's a good way to help you remember the 4 countries that make up the United Kingdom. News. News is in, can you spell the word news? Think about it. Actually, can you spell the word news? Think for a second. Okay, if you can, you should have said, oh, news. N-E-W-S. Well, if you can spell news, then you can memorize this. So think about it. If you're not sure about which countries are what in the United Kingdom, think of the word news and then go news. Northern Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland. News. Northern Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland. That is a really good way to remember the countries that make up the United Kingdom. Also, if you want to remember a certain order, and by the way, do this with other countries as well. Sometimes it's kind of hard, you won't spot a pattern, but sometimes you can in the letters, and that will help you. So you come up with whatever ways helps you to remember the countries, whether we're in Western Europe, or we go to the Nordic countries, or we go to Eastern Europe later on. Think of patterns that you can spot. So we talked about news. News is a great way to remember the 4 countries. If you want to remember them in order, think of the word sown. Sewn, S-E-W-N, as in, oh, my parents have sewn this garment in the past, right? So it's kind of wrong tense, but you get my point, right? Sewn, Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. Sorry, I said have sewn, had sewn. My parents had sewn that garment in the past. I knew there was something off. I said have, so had sewn, but sewn, S-E-W-N. Scotland, England, Wales, Northern Ireland. So you can remember them in order, S-E-W-N. So you can remember news if you just want to know the 4 countries and you think you can remember it. If you want to remember them in order, think of the word sewn, as in my parents had sewn this garment yesterday. All right? Hopefully that helps you. Now, on to today's lesson. So we are going over here, and we are going to sit, and by we, I mean myself, which should be I. We're here going right here. Take a look at this map. If any of you guys watched yesterday's YouTube video, we're going to try and lessen all the camera shaking as much as possible. Now we're taking a look at the atlas, and this is obviously an atlas. If we scroll back a little bit, by scroll back I mean actually zoom out, this is a political map of Europe. We're going to focus, as we normally have, on Germany. Now, one of the reasons we focus on Germany, if you're asking, wow, does Mr. McGee just really like Germany? Well, you got to remember, Germany has 82 million people in the country. It has the 4th highest GDP in the world. GDP means gross domestic product. That's the amount of money that a country takes in a year. Germany is the most powerful country in Europe. And right now, considering where they're situated, it's a lot easier to work with this country to help us with some of our lessons that we're doing. So we're taking a look at Germany. Now, what do you see with this political map? Hopefully, one of the things that you notice, let's get a little bit closer. One of the things you notice with Germany, you see the capital, Berlin. Berlin is in the northeast. You see the star next to it. You also hopefully notice, hey, where are a lot of the major cities located in Germany? Well, if you said, oh, they're located in the west, you are correct. And we can talk about the development of Western cities after World War II. That's going to happen when we actually learn about World War II later. But for now, even though Berlin's the capital in the east, most of the major cities happen to be here in the west and in the south, with Munich, Stuttgart. You have Essen. There's not on this map, but Dusseldorf is right in this area. Cologne, Frankfurt. So these are all really important to Germany. So one of the things that we look at when we deal with geography, we like to look at a country and say, hey, where are the major cities located and why? Now, before we move on, just as a little side note, you see that city in Germany, in the north of Germany, that sits on the Elbe River, Hamburg? This is where we get the word hamburger from. Now, this is not going to help you on any test, but it's cool knowledge. How many of you guys have ever thought, why on earth do they call it a hamburger when it's beef? Okay, the reason they call it a hamburger is because it has nothing to do with ham. All right, so it has nothing to do with the meat ham. The type of sandwich that we think of a hamburger is said to have originated in the city of Hamburg, Germany. And since that particular sandwich originated in Hamburg, Germany, it became known as a hamburger. And that's why we use the word hamburger today. So there you go. There is your fun fact for the day. All right, let's actually get on to some more of what we actually need to know. Now, this is the political map. We looked at where the cities are located. Now, if you're looking at Essen, Cologne, Bonn, even Frankfurt's not on the Rhine itself. How many of you guys noticed that those cities are on the Rhine River? A lot of major cities, a lot of capitals will be located on the coast, or they'll be located next to a river. I want you to ask yourself this question. Why? Why are so many cities located next to a river or next to the coast? Why would people build cities on a river or on the coast? So start thinking about that to yourself, because we're going to go back to that later. Now let's go ahead and fly from Germany. We're going to fly over here to the United Kingdom, which is made up of, hopefully you're saying England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. That is correct. Notice that London, the capital city of the United Kingdom, notice that London, let's make that a little bit clearer. London is located on the Thames River. So there's another major city located on the Thames. Cardiff, by the way, is the capital of Wales. Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland. And Belfast is the capital of Northern Ireland, in case you're wondering where those other stars are. So London's the capital, but London ends up being the capital of all of the United Kingdom when we talk about the United Kingdom, but London is also the capital of just England itself. So yes, the United Kingdom is a little bit complicated, but again, we do need to understand it and understand these four countries that make up the United Kingdom. Now again, you were probably noting some large cities. You have Birmingham, you've got Manchester a little up north, but not a lot of major cities up here in the very north of England. Okay, interesting. You have Glasgow and Edinburgh in southern Scotland, but not a ton of major cities in northern Scotland. That's the bell, so we're going to pause for a second, and then you're going to magically see me start talking again later on. Hi, I'm back. Welcome. Now, by the way, I also forgot to show you this, which is, you guys see Liverpool. Liverpool is a major port city, also a major city in England as well. So you can see Liverpool right there. Now, whoa, there we go. Now you've noticed we've talked about Germany, talked about the United Kingdom in terms of some of their major cities. Again, I want you to think, why are a lot of major cities and a lot of capital cities, why are they located a lot of times along a river or along the coast? Be thinking about that. We're going to turn our page backwards. Let's take a look at our physical map. Because while we've noted a lot of the cities, and even the physical map will still show a lot of capital cities, some of the major capital cities, I should say, let's take a look at the physical features of Germany. And then we'll take a look at the physical features of the United Kingdom. So there you go. There's Germany. Now you notice what you see here on our page? Why don't you read what it says at the top? Northern European Plain. Now what is a plain? And please note the spelling, so you're not going to tell me, oh, that's that thing that flies in the air. Now, when we have plains, we're talking about generally flat land that does not have mountains and really not a ton of trees. So you're not going to see huge forests in the plains. But what's great about this land that's relatively flat with no mountains, a lot of times plains are really good for farming, especially if you have rivers that are flowing through the plains, like the Elbe River. So when you have plains like this is great for agriculture. Now, if you look in Canvas, you'll notice that I told you, hey, you need to go ahead and make sure you look at this week's vocab lessons. And you're going to notice two words in the vocabulary. One is agriculture. So agriculture means growing crops. It's basically, agriculture is farming, and farming is two things. Raising crops, number one, and growing livestock. Did I say raising crops? Flip that around, shall we? Growing crops and raising livestock. That actually makes sense. So growing crops and raising livestock. Livestock, stock that's alive, chickens, horses, cows, pigs, that kind of stuff. So growing crops, raising livestock. The second word in your vocabulary list is arable. And arable land is land that can be farmed. Land that is capable of growing crops. So if I look at a desert is not arable because you cannot grow crops there. But if I find some really good soil that can actually grow crops, that land is arable. If we look here, you have the northern European plain running through Germany, and we'll talk about it running through Poland and Belarus and other places later. But right now we're in Western Europe. So running through Germany with the Elbe River and other smaller rivers that are not on this map running through this area, this is great farmland. So Germany has some really great agricultural areas in the north. But if we go down, hey, it's less green. Now, if you're not sure about this coloration, what should you have done first before looking at this map if you're not sure about these different colors? Oh, the map key. And look here. If it's green, it's pretty much flat. It's at sea level. But as the green gets lighter, you're going up higher. And then as we go to the yellow, you're going up higher. So let's say 1,640 feet to 3,280 feet. By the way, keep in mind, see if we can get this closer. 5,280 feet is 1 mile. So we're going to look at the feet side because we use the English system. So as it gets more brown, you're going to notice, let's see if we make that clear. As it gets more brown, you're going up higher and higher. Now that we know that, let's take a look. So we know North Germany is pretty flat, which is great. You have the plains running through it. But as you go down south, it gets higher as you go down south. So you have a little higher elevation, more higher elevation. Look here as you get towards southern Germany. Southern Germany is bordering Switzerland and bordering Liechtenstein. But if we think about Switzerland right here, what mountain range is running through Switzerland? The Alps. So you're getting some pretty high mountains. Now they're going through the Alps, but as we get closer to the Alps, you're going to have a lot, the elevation is going to go up in Germany. So flat in the north, but as we go up, we get higher, as we go south, we have higher elevation. It's going to become more mountainous. You also have the very famous Black Forest in Germany. Let's see if that's going to go clear for us. And so you have the Black Forest in Germany. And you also have another river. There's the Danube. That's the start of the Danube River. We'll talk about the Danube River later. That kind of gives us an idea with Germany. Flat in the north, lots of farmland, but a lot of times agricultural land. If you think about it, agricultural land, that's rural areas, so there's less people in a lot of rural areas, R-U-R-A-L. So a lot less people live in rural areas. But as you go into cities, we call those cities urban areas. And the towns outside of cities, a lot of times we call suburban or suburban. All right, so suburban normally is under urban, but obviously it's not under the city. So suburban areas. So that should help us if we're thinking, wow, okay, it's kind of flat here. There's Berlin, but we were wondering to ourselves, hey, wait a second. How is it that when we look at Germany, there's not that many large cities in the northern eastern areas, but a ton in these western areas. And again, that also deals with the building up of cities after World War II. But rural farm areas, this is mountain, and we're getting to more mountainous areas. And along the Rhine River, which is a really great place to build some cities. But as we get down here, we're not going to have as much farmland because it's more mountainous down in southern Germany. So you have some major cities here, but not a ton of cities here in the south. By the way, sorry, my cord got stuck, and now, all of a sudden, Mr. McGee is way over here. There we go. So, let's see if we can keep the cord from getting stuck. Awesome. I don't have a wireless cam, so this is actually connected to the laptop, so I can actually take the video and then upload it. So let's take a look at the United Kingdom now. Physical features, same thing. So we're going back to our atlas. We look at our physical features here. There's the United Kingdom. All right. Now, I'm focusing a lot with the United Kingdom on England, but I'm also going to deal with Scotland too. Okay, so sorry for all my Welsh people and all my North Irishmen. Sorry about that. So let's take a look at England first. What would be England? All right, now you notice, hey, what do we see? Because we know our map key now. This is pretty green right here, so you know that this is going to be a lot flatter area. A more farmland can be developed here. And there's London. But as you go up north, so this is kind of the opposite of Germany. Remember Germany, flat in the north, and then as you go south, it becomes more mountainous, the elevation increases. Well, here, if we're looking at England, flat in the south, and then as we go up to northern England, guess what? Boy, it's a lot more mountainous. So I'm asking myself, I wonder what people do here to make a living, because you're not going to be able to farm as much because the land is flatter. Because the land has a higher elevation. There's probably more hills and mountains. I get that you can farm here where the land is flatter, but in the north, that's kind of hard. Let's look at Scotland. If you remember how when we looked at Scotland, we said, their major cities are Glasgow and Edinburgh. And yes, you have to say Edinburgh. You don't say Edinburgh, but you say Edinburgh. But how come I don't see, besides like a little town of Aberdeen, I don't really see a lot of major cities. In fact, I see no major cities up north. Well, if I look here, guess what? Oh my, look at all those mountains, right? Look at the Highlands of Scotland. It's kind of hard to build a lot of major cities there in some of these higher elevation areas, especially because look at where the latitude is. This is 60 degrees north latitude. So 60 degrees north latitude, it's going to be a lot colder. The latitude is a lot higher than if we were in Germany. So in Germany, as you're going further south, yeah, you can put some cities like Munich and Stuttgart around this area. All right, that makes sense. But this is a higher latitude, higher elevation. So higher elevation with a higher latitude, it's going to get really cold in the highlands. It's going to be really hard to build major cities at all. So you notice the major cities are actually in southern Scotland. So that's something I want you to think about. Cities are built in areas for a reason. Someone just doesn't come along and go, I don't know, I just think I'll build a city here. There's a lot of thought that goes into it. That's why I asked you that question at the beginning. Why do people build a lot of the capital cities and a lot of their major cities? Why are they along rivers? Why are they near the coast? Hopefully you're still thinking about that question. But people build cities for a reason. So geography a lot of times determines where a city is going to be located. Now that we know that, we're going to very quickly take a look at a couple of our maps. Remember we said there's all sorts of maps. You can have a map for just about anything if it deals with population or deals with land. So there's our climate map. Now that we know it's a climate map, what should we do? Always look at the map key. So if we're looking at the map key, we see some of the colors. Now, we're not going to really know what these colors, we know what these colors mean, but let's see if we can find Germany. Okay, guys, pretty much all of Germany, with the exception of a little patch of southeastern Germany, most of Germany is this dark green. So what does that mean? It means that they have a pretty moderate climate. And we said the dark green, they're going to have some rainy summers. Now, if you have rainy summers, you know what that means? Yeah, the summers are not going to be that hot because it rains a lot. I mean, think about it now. When it wasn't raining here in Georgia, we had some pretty hot days. But boy, with all this rain, it hasn't really been that hot. It's just been rainy. So think about rainy summers. Their summers are going to be a lot cooler. And because they have a moderate type of climate. And by the way, when you get to high school, you're going to see more detail in terms of climates. This is kind of giving you a nice easy version of different climates. You can see all sorts of weird terms, but that's going to be a little bit more for high school. So moderate climate, absolutely. Not going to be too hot. It's not going to be too cold in Germany. Really nice. Look here. England, moderate climate. Now, England, it rains. Let's see if we can stop our camera from shaking. England, it rains a ton. All right, so you're going to get that a lot. A ton of rain in England. Sorry, I'm saying England, but actually throughout the United Kingdom, you are going to get a lot of rain. And you notice, again, same moderate climate with rainy summers. And again, as I said before, the United Kingdom is known for being rainy a lot of the year. So that is very common. So if you've got a nice moderate climate, chances are it's going to be a great place for a lot of people to live because the climate won't be too harsh for them. All right, let's go to population. So here's our population map. We always look at our map key. Oh, awesome. Again, we use the English system, so we will not look at the numbers in parentheses. We will not look at the numbers in parentheses. We'll use the numbers that are not. We'll use the numbers that are above the parentheses. So dark red means over 1,250 people per square mile. Again, the more red, the darker the red, the higher the population density. That means the number of people within a square mile. So you know you've got huge cities if it's in dark red. Okay, the medium red, 250 to 1,250 people per square mile. Really, really light red, 62.5 to 250 people per square mile. And then it goes into some of the yellow. So look here. Can you see Germany? See if we can get close. All right, so look at those dark red splotches. Pull up, there we go. So look at those dark red splotches. Now if you're asking yourself, all right, so I see some dark red right there. I see one red patch right here. I see a red patch up here. I see a couple red patches here. Dark red, I mean, everything's red, but dark red patches. So dark red, a little dark red here, a little dark red. Huh, I wonder what that means. Well, let's flip back a second. Oh, that's interesting. Dark red patch would have been there. The dark red patch would have been there. Dark red along this area, and dark red down here. Notice that the population map is showing us where the major cities are. So we know when we look at a population map and we see dark red, we're probably looking at a major city in Germany. And then we see some of the red. Again, note that the light red is in this northern area where the plains are. Remember we said those are the rural areas? And so rural areas, there's going to be more farmland, there's going to be less people. So notice that that's light red, but then as we go south, we're not going to have as much farmland. We have more of the medium red. And of course, where the big cities are, those have dark red. So we note that the geography influences the population. Again, more farmland, awesome because you can feed your country, which is important because people need food to live, but you're also going to have less people. In the areas where it's hard to have farmland, I wonder what kind of jobs people might have in these areas. We'll have to think about that. But let's go to the United Kingdom. So look here. Remember how we were saying we had such high mountains in Scotland? All right? Boy, not a lot of people. The population density is a lot less. But look over here where Glasgow and Edinburgh would be. Right? There's Glasgow and Edinburgh right there in Scotland. And now look. There's the dark red that tells me where those cities are located. Same thing with England. You know London. London is one of the largest cities in the world, and there's a lot of dark red there. You notice we talk about Manchester and Liverpool, and there's some dark red areas that tells us where people are. In this case, because you have large cities like London, there's more red here. A lot of people in the mountainous areas in England, there's not that many. So you know that, yeah, even though there's farmland here, in what's called the Midlands in England, if you're in England, but the dark red here is London. Dark red is a major city on the coast. And then you're going to have some farming in between, which are going to have some lighter areas. All right. By the way, obviously I'll be on conference if you have any questions about this. Now we're going to take a look at probably 2 more maps. Actually, I think 1 more map. So economic activities. So let's take a look here. Awesome. There is our map key. So let's take a look at Germany. So, oh man, there's a ton of yellow with splotches of red. So what does that mean? Look at our map key. Yellow means agriculture. If you remember, I told you agriculture is growing crops and raising livestock. And the red is manufacturing, commerce. So manufacturing, by the way, commerce means trade. Think of the word commercial. Right? Commercial comes from commerce. Commerce is trade, buying and selling. Manufacturing, think about things in a factory. All right? If you have a raw good, you have to turn it into something that's usable. So it has to be manufactured. Normally it has to go through a factory of some kind. Think of this as an example. Imagine, let me sit back in my chair a second. So imagine if you have cotton, right? A lot of times your shirts are made of cotton. If you were to go out to a farm somewhere where they grow cotton, do you really think that when you look at the plant, your shirt is right there? You just pull up a plant, you're like, oh, hey, cool, awesome, here's my shirt. It's, in my case, it's XXL large. Well, no, that'd be crazy. Your shirt doesn't grow out of the ground. But cotton does, but you have to take that cotton and then process it, get rid of the seeds that are in it, and you have to process it, take it, turn it into thread, and then use it to create a shirt. Well, that's called manufacturing, taking the raw good, raw is that cotton in its raw form, and turning it into a good that can be used. So the red here is manufacturing. So look at Germany. Just like we saw before, we said we had the plains area going through Germany, and so we have a lot of yellow here for agriculture, but a lot of times there are spots where those cities are, and those cities have a lot of manufacturing. Remember we said, hey, what do people do when you get into southern Germany and you can't farm as much? Well, hey, look, there you go. You've got manufacturing. So there's going to be a lot of companies that manufacture a lot of goods in that area. Same thing if we go to the United Kingdom. We've got a lot of farmland in different areas, but you notice the red is a lot of times around the major cities. So London, as well as we said this would have been Liverpool, Manchester. If we're heading up here, you notice, again, Glasgow and Edinburgh would have been these areas. This is where manufacturing. So a lot of urban areas. Urban means city. Urban's the opposite of rural. Rural is out in the country, but urban means city. You notice that a lot of times the urban areas that are in red, where a lot of people live, they are going to have manufacturing. They're going to have a lot of commerce, a lot of trade. You know, talking about trade and insurance and things like that. They're going to do that. Banking is huge. They're going to do that instead of agriculture. So agriculture is going to be out in the rural areas. In the urban areas, you're going to have a lot of trade and commerce. Sorry, trade and commerce is the same thing. You're going to have a lot of manufacturing. Now, we are almost done, but I want us to take a look at that and see, again, if we go over here, we can easily see with Germany, oh, there's the northern European plains. It makes sense. There's a ton of yellow here. Doesn't mean that there's no yellow, but there's still some yellow in this area. But along the major cities, that's where we have our manufacturing in those major city areas. Now, I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, conference with me and we'll talk about it. So conference will be open. Now, here is your assignment. Hopefully you've been thinking about that question that I asked you. Why are major cities, whether they are capital cities or just big cities, why on earth do people build them on rivers or near the coast? Not on the river, meaning it's a floating city. But when we say a city is built on the river, we mean near a river or built near the coast. People don't just go, oh, okay, well, I'll just build a city anywhere. There's thinking involved. And so now you're going to think, why are these cities located near rivers or near the coast? So for this question, we'll just do rivers, okay? So we won't do coast, and I'll show you some stuff. Think about it. If you look at your map, oh look, there's Paris. Paris is on the Seine River, right? And you can look at other major cities that happen to be on the rivers: Toulouse, Bordeaux, Nantes. No, it's not Nantes, but Nantes, if I have that correct. Sorry to all the people that live there, all right? But Paris on the Seine River, Lyon. If we go to Madrid, look, Madrid is near the Tagus River, or the Tagus River, probably is how it's pronounced. Lisbon is also on a river, all right? Looks like part of the Tagus as well. We have Rome. Rome happens to be near the coast. You've got London on the Thames. You've got Dublin, Ireland on the coast. Belfast is on the coast. Cardiff is on the coast. Glasgow is near the coast. Look, Copenhagen, Denmark is near the coast. Berlin, one of the few cities we're going to find that isn't really on a river or near the coast. But again, notice that most happen to be. Even Bern. Bern is the capital of Switzerland. It's not on a river, but it is near a lake. So why? I want you to think about that, and here's the key. So why are cities built on near rivers? Why are a lot of major cities built near rivers? So again, we'll keep the coast away because a lot of times the coast has the same idea, but I want to go especially with rivers. So why are a lot of major cities built near rivers? I want you to tell me 5 reasons. You're going to have to think about it. What are 5 reasons that major cities have been built, that are built along rivers? 5 reasons. It has to be written, it has to be typed in complete sentences and submit it to me. And by the way, typed in complete sentences, no text message language. This is still school, whether you're virtual or in person. So no text message language. Make sure that you've capitalized the first letter at the beginning of a sentence. Make sure that the letter I, when you're talking as a pronoun, I did this, make sure that the I is capitalized. I saw a lot of work submitted to me last week that didn't have the I capitalized, and we're too old to make that mistake, okay? So I want you to make sure that you do that. 5 reasons. Give me 5 reasons that cities are built near rivers. Think about it. Turn that in to me. Submit that to me, okay? And again, if you have any questions, conference with me. Take care, guys.